Hey everyone, and welcome. Get ready because today we're jumping into an idea that might just change the way you see, well, everything. We're going to explore the wild possibility that at every single level of reality, from the tiniest subatomic particle to the vastness of space, our entire universe is defined by one core principle: vibration. Now, to really wrap our heads around this, let's start with a really cool metaphor. Instead of picturing the universe as just a bunch of separate static things, I want you to imagine it as a huge interconnected symphony, a cosmic orchestra where everything, and I mean everything, is playing its own special note in one great universal harmony. Okay, let's dive right in. And we're going to start at the absolute smallest scale you can possibly imagine. We're going to search for the fundamental notes, the very first instruments playing in our cosmic orchestra. And that brings us to a pretty radical idea called string theory. It basically asks us to completely rethink reality. It suggests that the fundamental building blocks of you, me, and everything else aren't tiny little points or dots. Instead, they're these minuscule, one-dimensional filaments of pure, vibrating energy. So this slide really gets to the heart of it. On the left, you've got the old way of thinking, a whole zoo of different particles, each one a fundamentally different thing. But on the right, you have the new view from string theory. There's only one basic ingredient: this vibrating string. So an electron, a photon, a quark, they aren't actually different things at all. They're all the same string, just vibrating at different frequencies. It's exactly like a guitar string playing different notes. Same string, totally different sounds. You know, to make this even simpler, just picture a jump rope. If you put a little bit of energy into it, you get one big simple arc, right? But if you really start whipping it, if you pump in more energy, you can create more complicated patterns, like 2 arcs or even 3. In string theory, these different vibrational patterns, these different notes, are what we see as different particles, with all their unique properties. So, if the very foundation of matter is all about vibration, what happens when we scale that idea up to the strange and wonderful world of biology? Well, it turns out this quantum dance doesn't just stop at the subatomic level, not even close. You see, the bizarre rules of quantum mechanics aren't just for physicists in a lab anymore. There's this incredible emerging field called quantum biology, and it's exploring how these super weird effects are not just present in living things, but are actually essential for some of life's most important functions. And this isn't some fringe idea either. Scientists are finding quantum mechanics at the very heart of so many biological processes. It's in the way plants are so incredibly efficient at photosynthesis, and it might even be the secret behind the internal compass that lets birds navigate using the Earth's magnetic field. Let's take our sense of smell. This is so cool. One theory suggests it has nothing to do with a molecule's shape, but everything to do with its vibration. So a rose molecule fits into a receptor in your nose. Then an electron tunnels across it, and in doing so, it loses a very specific amount of energy, an amount that perfectly matches the rose molecule's unique vibrational frequency. Your brain reads that energy loss and goes, "Uh-huh, that's a rose." You're not just smelling a chemical, you're literally detecting its quantum music. Wild, right? And get this, for another incredible example of nature's quantum engineering, when a plant captures sunlight, it transfers that energy to where it's needed with over 99% efficiency. How? Through a quantum trick called coherence. It basically explores every possible path for that energy all at once and instantly picks the most efficient one. That's a level of performance our best technology can only dream about. Okay, so we've seen rhythm way down at the quantum level. Now let's zoom out from there and see how these same kinds of rhythmic patterns pop up in entire biological systems, including our own. The truth is, life isn't static. It's a dynamic process that's all about timing. Our bodies, and really all of biology, are just packed with countless clocks, cycles, and oscillations, all keeping their own time on all sorts of different scales. And this slide just shows so clearly how deep this principle of rhythm really goes. On the left, you've got a single protein inside our cells cycling up and down over a few hours. On the right, you have a person's entire mood oscillating over weeks or months. The scales are worlds apart, but the underlying mathematical principle, that rhythm, is exactly the same. And once you start looking for this pattern, you see it everywhere in nature. From the famous 10-year population cycle of lynx and hares in Canada to the daily circadian rhythm that tells you when to get sleepy, all the way down to the tiny rhythmic pulsing of calcium inside your own cells. Life is a symphony of clocks. So, all of this leads to a really fascinating question. If life is so fundamentally built on frequency and rhythm, Can we use that very principle to influence it? Can we actually learn to tune our own biology? And the answer is yeah, we're trying. Researchers and doctors are actively exploring ways to speak this rhythmic language of our cells, using external frequencies and electromagnetic fields to interact with the body's own built-in systems. A really powerful mainstream example of this is a treatment called RTMS. It's actually FDA approved for things like severe depression. As you can see, a coil placed on the head generates these targeted magnetic pulses. These pulses can help reset the firing patterns, the rhythms, of specific parts of the brain, effectively helping to retune neural circuits that have gone off-key. So this table helps compare two very different approaches to this idea. With RTMS, the principle is electromagnetism, and it's used to induce a real measurable electric field in the brain. It's a mainstream medical treatment. In contrast, you have alternative approaches like Rife-based PMF. Its stated principle is resonant frequency, and it claims to target specific cells or even pathogens with pulsed electromagnetic fields. The key differences, as you can see, are the proposed mechanism and, of course, the level of scientific consensus. And this is a look at a device from that alternative field. It's a Rife-Baer device. These evolved from concepts developed way back in the 1930s by a man named Royal Rife, who was convinced that specific frequencies could have targeted effects on biological organisms. It's important to note, this approach is still very controversial and is mechanistically distinct from established medical treatments like RTMS. So, wow, after this whole journey, from the tiniest theoretical strings all the way up to the complex clocks ticking inside of us, what's the big takeaway from all this? I think the big takeaway is this. Our reality, from the very fabric of space-time to the essence of life itself, is literally woven from rhythm. Vibration isn't just a property of things in the universe. In a very real way, vibration is the universe. It's an unseen pulse, a cosmic rhythm that connects absolutely everything. And that leaves us with one final, fascinating question to think about. If everything truly is just vibration, a complex, resonant symphony of frequencies, then what does that say about consciousness, about health, about the fundamental nature of life itself? What happens when we start seeing ourselves not as machines, but as music?